What's up, my friends? I say great morning to you. This is your boy Dragon coming to you with another Rise Up with Dragon, and we have a very, very special guest here today. Very excited for this, but let's kick this off. We're gonna have fun like always, and today we're going to talk about depression and overcoming fear and massive twists and concepts and things like that. And we'll get to that in a second, but you know how it is.
Great morning, world! Welcome to the Rise Up with Dragon podcast with your host, Dragon!
Awesome. Great morning to you, my friends. And excited about this fella that's here on the Rise Up with Dragon podcast / show. Welcome to the Dragon's Lair, Mr. Andy Howard. Let me get him unmuted, who I can now officially say he's not only my friend and he's an amazing leader and success story, but he's now an author. I can say author of his new release book, which we're going to talk about. Mr. Andy Howard, thanks for being on the show, my brother.
Thanks for having me, and it's an honor to be here, and always good to see you. So thanks for doing this. And man, that sounds awesome. I haven't heard that said yet. Author Andy Howard, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I'm at the point now where I can say I'm a co-author, but not until my book releases will I say I'm an author. So I'm jealous, man. But you know, Andy has been on his book launch tour and all of that stuff. So, you know, he's a father, he's a husband, and he leads a massive team of coaches and stuff. And that's how we know each other. What I can say about Andy, just from my standpoint, is, you know, I meet a lot of people, and you know, I just remember the first time that I saw him and his lovely wife Tiffany, and they have an amazing story. Speak from stage, and I could just tell. I mean, they were great speakers because they speak from the heart, and they've got an amazing story. So some people might look at them and think that they were great speakers, but I could just tell that like this whole realm of success was just new to them, and I love that about them. And you know, Andy, I think it was either him or his wife, you know, referred to themselves as country bumpkins. Like that was the funny thing. Like, we're just country bumpkins. And, you know, that's powerful because that just shows you anybody can do this. But I started calling him CB as a result of that. So that's kind of our little nickname is JC and CB. So Andy, so excited I want to focus on the book now because I want to make sure that everybody gets this in their hands, because it goes over something that just universally everybody is struggling with out there. And that's, you know, just, it's called When Words Don't Come Easy. And first of all, just what a perfect name for the book. And, you know, for those of you that haven't gotten it yet, or you're waiting to get it, obviously it's on all the channels. I think it's on Audible as well. But Andy, very smart. He actually gives the first chapter away for free on his website. We'll put all that stuff in the notes. And just go listen to that chapter and you'll get the idea. So Andy, let's talk about this book. I guess my first question, let's put things into context right now. The best way that you can, explain to everybody what your current reality is, because we're going to go a little bit further back, but you and your wife, Tiffany, you know, just came from like one extreme to the other. So maybe we can kind of like intertwine the book into that process, because where you're at in your life right now, where you're writing this book, is part of your transformation. I mean, you guys have gone through a massive health transformation and started this, you know, amazing business, and you're leading so many people. So take us back to the country bumpkin, you know, reality, and just bring us forth to this reality, and then we'll get into the book.
You bet. And I do have to take credit for that. I know you said you didn't remember who it was. Tiffany would never take credit for that. So thanks for bringing that up. But sure, we're from East Texas. So those who don't know me, and nothing against country bumpkins. Those are my people. love country bumpkins. But we're simple people, man. And you're right. We are new to a lot of this success. Kind of seems like it came overnight, but there were years of prayers, honestly. And the book dives into that more. Just hard stories from the time we found out that Peyton was going to be born. About that point on, we just went through a lot of obstacles. So where I'm at now is a very good place. We're very, goodness, just everything we went through to get to this point, it is very good, but it's a journey. Even just like you mentioned, our health journey. What I found with depression is for me, it didn't just happen overnight. There wasn't just one thing where I can snap my fingers and say, all right, I'm no longer depressed. There was several things on the journey. Like one thing led to the next thing, which led to the next, which I do kind of dive into in the book. But now I am at a very good place. Take it one day at a time. And each day I've been telling everybody I'm celebrating life. I'm celebrating life because each day is a new chance for you to add on to your story. It's a blank page for you to add on to it.
Yeah. And, you hear me say this all the time, but, and you can attribute that to myself as well. Whenever you meet somebody and you're meeting this guy in his most polished state, I mean, he's still a work in progress like us all, but, you're meeting him. And if you saw him in his element, you would create this impression that he's just like some guy that was born successful, even though he's got a great story. But whenever you meet somebody like, the Howards, and you see how they've dedicated their entire life, whether it's through, being pastors or coaches or leaders or anything like that, you got to wonder what the backstory is behind that, because even Mother Teresa, she's, in my opinion, she's suspect too. Like, what does somebody have to go through to get to this point where they dedicate their life to helping others? So I think that leads into, our ability to get into the book. And you mentioned Peyton, but give us a little bit of a backstory. I think it's important to start with your religious background. On this show, we have all different types of people that are passionate about religion, but that's always been a big part of, what you did. And, having a very strong faith in God, but then you went through this process, and I'd love you to, this is from the first chapter. I'd love you to talk about that process of the things that unfolded, the rising, the excitement of life, and then just the getting crumbled down and your beliefs getting, challenged and depression setting in. Tell us that story. That's an amazing story.
Well, thank you, man. A journey as well. We found out about Peyton and her birth, and there was just so much excitement. It was about 5 years into our marriage, so it's our first, her first baby. And the short version of that was she was born, and after test after test, we found out that the doctor didn't think she'd be able to talk, which she still hasn't now at 14 years old. She can't walk. She can't use her fingers or hands. So she has cerebral palsy, and 10% brain function is the very short version of it. So with that, at the time, even when we got that diagnosis, I was a youth pastor. So most people would look at me and say, "Oh, this guy's got it all together. He's helping, he's helping kids. He's a pastor. He serves." And just for me, and I do again dive into this. It wasn't a volunteer position. It was a very low-paying part-time position, but we never did that for the money. That was, for serving God and serving people. So at that point, at first, something rose up in me when we got the diagnosis. I'm like, God, I'm going to pray every single day to you until you heal my daughter. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to, do that good fatherly thing. And I was earnest and sincere with that. But somewhere along the way, these earnest, sincere prayers turned into bitterness. Kind of like, well, why me, God? I mean, don't I deserve something? I've been doing all this work for you. The least you could do is take care of my baby girl, right? And so somewhere along the way, it wasn't overnight as well, but I began to fall into what I later found out was a depression.
Isn't that interesting? So I don't want to pass over one really, really strong element here because, you can kind of get a sense of the kind of person that Andy is. So just imagine what their elation and excitement was when they found out that they were having this child. I mean, just like probably thinking that she's the going to save the world and she's going to be this perfect. You find out it's going to be a girl and all of those things. And you got to read his book because he really goes into all of that stuff. But when you found out that moment, when you found out, because this is something, and anybody that's ever suffering with depression and this idea, and I want you to go into that later, of when words don't come easy, that whole concept is not something somebody wakes up and decides to have happen to them. It usually happens to them. So what was it like for you the moment that all of your dreams and what you had imagined was about to happen were changed by that diagnosis? What happened to your faith in that moment?
I want to say my faith was always there. It was. Now I got feel like I got punched in the gut. I'm not going to lie there. I felt like I was betrayed, let down, I guess, discouraged. But I can honestly say I never gave up on God. And I'm grateful he never gave up on me. But there was a season where, and it was over, I would say 3 to 4 years. It didn't happen overnight where I ever came out of it, but a very just dark tunnel. There was times where I didn't want to get up. I never attempted suicide. I never had suicidal thoughts, but I didn't want to keep living. I will say that. I was just very down. And then at the same time as this is going on, right, as me trying to be the father of the family and this dad, this heroic dad, I look over and see my wife being a champion. Like, she becomes the advocate for Peyton. And she's like, well, the doctor may say this, but we're going to get her in this rehab class. And we're going to, even at 9 months old, she had started, therapy and rehab. And Tiff was just this champion. So that even in a way made me feel even worse. But I was like, is Peyton not good enough for me? Am I not happy that, this beautiful angel is here? And so there was just so much to dissect throughout the whole process. But I am grateful. God he's so faithful, and he remained faithful throughout the whole process for this.
Yeah, it's amazing. If you ever get a chance to meet his wife too, it's important. I mean, you can like try to imagine and picture her, but she is definitely a champion. And thank God, God works in mysterious ways, right? I heard somebody say the big guy in the sky has an endless supply, So it's like it's that idea of like sometimes we lose sight of what is already there because we get just so messed up with our own ideas. And I know you talk a lot about that in the book about, these breakthroughs. That's what I want to get into now. These breakthroughs about, some of these real special people that came into your life and your trip to South Africa. And I think it was JM and that guidance. I want to get into that right now because like what I'm hearing here, and this is important, is even in the darkest of dark, you still can have faith. You can still have faith in whatever that power that you have faith in. But sometimes you can have faith and still be lost and confused. So talk a little bit about, because this is a big part of setting up the book, because we can get into depression and we can get into all those things that are attracting to people. But I think what Andy does a very good job of is sharing where it came from and some things that he needed to realize to get him back on the straight and narrow. So maybe tell us about, the things that led up to that South Africa trip.
Awesome. Well, yes. And so I'm channel surfing one night in just a funk, just being honest with you, just not happy. And I'm just flipping through to waste time just to get through another day. That was my goal, was let's just get through another day. And, not expecting anything crazy to happen. And I actually stopped on a channel I never watched even as a youth pastor, there was this local Christian TV channel, and sometimes it was just kind of cheesy, just being honest with you. So there's this guy getting interviewed long before I knew him, and you know him as well, Dragon. And I'm flipping through, and it's an evangelist. He's talking about his book, and it's called "Why Is God So Mad at Me?" And it just it grabbed me. I'm like, yeah, why is God so mad at me? And he actually went on to say it's a lie from the enemy. It's not that God's mad at you; He's madly in love with you. And so I just ordered the book that night because I thought, that might help me. So I started reading that book long before I even knew. So this is just one of those, I call them God winks in the book. And it's just one of those things where God was looking out for me even when I was, down in the dumps. I later meet this guy. He becomes a coach as well. And we're on this training one night, and I elbowed Tiff. I'm like, that's Pat Schatzline. That's the guy. That's the guy that wrote that book. And so the craziest thing is we both qualify for this trip that our company does. We end up in Greece, and I am face to face with the guy who wrote a book who helped, I would say one of the main cogs of me getting out of the depression was reading that book. And out of all the people in the world, I mean, what are the odds that I, one, see him on TV and I read his book, but then end up face to face with the man who had a big role in me getting out of depression?
Yeah, but is that really so amazing? Or is that just you just reaffirming what you kind of got, you maybe forgot, you know what I mean? One of the things we talk a lot about on this show is that, everything that we need to proceed is right in front of you, indeed, so it's like, if you don't see it, it's not that it's not there. It's just you didn't see it. So
Right.
we always think it's like a miracle when you turn the TV on and you're led to this channel and you see the guy and then he shows up. But then you go, oh yeah, I asked for that. You know what I mean? And, so amazing. So tell us a little bit more, because you made this big distinction. One of the quotes that I love that you said, I don't know whose quote this is, but I'm calling it Andy Howard right here. Where is that? If you can't move, what is it? You can't move forward if you're standing still. So you made a big distinction about how you were making everything about you, and then you kind of got back into that service and you went into South Africa. How did that unfold?
Yeah. So the same Pat, a couple months later, well, from that point, it was probably a couple years later, but he asked me to go to South Africa. And so he's got, he's a big deal as in Christian world as far as an evangelist. And he's
we got to make sure for the audience that we know, because I know this guy as well. He's a big deal. And so is his wife. His wife might even be a bigger deal.
Yes, for
he
sure.
would want us to say that.
Yes, for sure. And they've been ministering, gosh, for, I don't know, maybe 30 years, something like that. So they've been around the block a few times. And so when he asked me to come speak, the last thing I'm thinking is I want to screw up this thing for him and just focus on myself, right? And that's when I reached out. You talked about it earlier, to my friend JM, and he said, "Dude, it's not about you. It's not about you." And as soon as you understand that the message is for the people, then that is when you'll be able to have this breakthrough. And so that was huge for me to realize, oh yeah, it's not about me. I'm being asked just to share my story, but it turns to help them. And so that took a lot of pressure off me, knowing it's not about me.
I have a question. Here's what I'm thinking right now, because, there's so much more to this story than what we're going to share here. So you got to go get this book. I mean, it really, really will just, shine a light on you if you're in that space where you can't see. Because really, it's really just about becoming conscious to things that are in front of you. But do you still, this is what's interesting, do you feel that you are in a place now where you've cured your depression, or do you just look at it in a different way? Because one of the things, I can't say that I'm depressed, but I still experience the feelings that are associated with it. But I feel like I just look at it differently. Explain, go into a little bit about your relationship now with depression.
Well, for me, and it is a very broad subject. So I would say if you're suffering from depression, and I'm not a doctor, want to be the first to tell you that. But from what I've experienced, and I was on medication at one time. I had saw a therapist and all the things. I'm not anymore. But like you said, I've grown a lot, Dragon. I've grown. So now, and it's just like anything, whether it's I learned so much through our health journey and things that I picked up little things along the way that when I even, like say it's even with health, when I feel myself taking a step back when I'm getting off track health wise, I've learned tools in place to get back on track. And that's the same thing with this. There are days, like you mentioned, everybody has bad days, but there's always going to be something just goes wrong or happens. And it's how you handle that going forward. So I try now just to stay in structure. I have a life coach as well. You may have known Dave Blanchard. He's just an amazing man. And he gave me so many steps to put in place. Just one was structure. And when I first started this, and I was not as bad as I was at the depression state, but I was falling into a funk. We had a lot of success at this point, money wise. We were doing well with our business. We got to travel a lot. Everything was going very good. Now I started finding myself kind of in this funk again. I could feel myself slipping back again. And so Tiff's like, you got to meet Dave. And she set this meeting up. And so I started working with Dave. And the very first thing he said is, we got to get you a passion. We have to find something for you to do. Because what's ironic is you would think if you kind of got to retire early, from a normal job and you got to travel, you would think that would be the life. But I guess as men, we are created to stay active and to have purpose and have passion. And maybe for women as well, I think for anyone. So at this point, he starts saying, we got to find you a passion. And that's where the book project came. I told him I'm supposed to write a book. I knew that for over a decade. And so Dave's like, well, that's what we're going to do. We're going to write a book. And so he taught me about structure and daily. He said, writers write. That's the term he always used, that if you want to be a writer, you're going to have to write. So we set up a time from 8 to noon every day where I would write. And so that was just huge for me. But now going forward, anytime I feel that, I try to keep those people in my life. Tiffany's one of them that knows. I have several close friends that I'm very accountable with and open with, and just try to surround myself with good people who love me and I trust. Who you can't share it with everybody, right? But there are people in my life that I trust. When I'm having a bad day, I can go to them and say, hey, this is what's going on. And it's worked for me.
I love that. I love the idea of knowing that you're reading a book about a beautiful story, that has so many different levels to it, but it brings to light oh my God, this guy, Andy Howard, he's so amazing. He's out there serving and helping people. But at the same time, you're reading a book that Andy Howard used as part of his journey and as a tool. Some people journal. I mean, I'm a writer myself. I don't know what I would do without writing. And if I didn't have something that made me feel like I mattered, it's like, we got to find that passion, got to find that. So it's like, I feel like people, while you're reading this book, you read a book written by somebody. And I like how Andy kind of lets you know what was going on in his life at the time that he was writing certain parts of the book. You'll like that. He's going along the journey with you. And you already know that on the other side of making these big distinctions and moving forward to maybe a clear or a more clear pasture, it's not the end of the road. It just brings you to this place where you can maybe see the next step. But we're gonna be working on ourselves for the rest of our lives.
Oh, yeah.
So who's this book for? I mean, I think everybody should read this book, because the person that claims that they're not in that way, they're either about to be or they're just pretending they're not. The person that is resonates with this and they say, this is what I need. I give big props to that person for embracing and recognizing it. But who does this book really suit? I mean, like, what is it who needs to read this book, and what is this book going to do for people?
Well, the whole goal of this book is hope. And so when 2020 happened, I think all of us were kind of knocked off guard by that, not And that's what's funny, ironic maybe. I was supposed to write this a decade ago. That's what I tell everybody. I really felt in my heart I was supposed to write a book, but I couldn't feel that it's the timing for it right now is so perfect. I don't mean perfect, but after 2020, it feels like depression and just anxiety and all the things as just running rampant in our country, just with all the different things going on. So I feel it's for everybody. It's for anyone. Like you said, whether you're going through depression or whether you just need hope in your life. And that's that's all of us. We all need hope from time to time. So it touches on marriages. I touch on how to keep your marriage guarded and protected. It touches on being an entrepreneur. So if you have goals and how to have success there, touches on our health. So our health journey and keeping everything in check there. And then of course, mental health as well from depression. So it's for everyone. There's something, and I hope that you will take away from the stories and the anecdotes along the way that will I kind of bring a lightheartedness to it, because these are some heavy topics. And so I want to bring everyone in, because I know I wouldn't want to read a book from cover to cover that's just like doom and gloom and dark, So there are some heavy topics in here, but at the same time, I try to bring humor and I try to bring it in a way that's just very relatable to all of us. So I think it's for everyone.
That's beautiful. I love it. Well, Andy, I mean, there's so much more that people need to learn about you. And, I would assume that there's going to be another book coming, because, once you get into this and you realize how good it was for you and for so many people, I know so many people are already involved in this. You had a big launch party, out there. Was that in Texas, by the way?
That was right up the road. And if we got a second, I want to talk about that, because I wish everyone could experience that. And I said this from the stage that night. Unfortunately, for the majority of us, we won't get a night like that until it's our funeral. And I don't want to be dark, but to be in a room where, like, I had so many of my best friends and family there, and they just showered me with kindness. It was just amazing, and the feeling was amazing. And I thought about that. Wow, why is it that we hold on to compliments for our dear friends and people? Because you have no idea what your neighbor or even someone in your family is facing. So many times we close the blinds, right? We don't want anyone to see us hurting, because we have to be tough and we have to be strong. Even as a pastor, right? I was serving as a minister for 4 years with this depression, but I had a smile on my face, because pastors can't show weakness, right? We can't let people know that we face depression. So my whole thought process, while everyone is saying all these kind things and nice things about me that night, which was awesome, I loved it. But wow, I wish everyone could experience this, because all those people, and the numbers are staggering, who commit suicide. I wish they could see what's on the other side of that at their funeral, all the people saying all those kind things and nice things about them. Maybe that would be enough for them to fight through this depression. So if you're holding on to those compliments, my challenge for you today is go tell somebody. It doesn't take anything to say, hey, your smile lights up a room, or give a compliment, something nice about them. And who knows, it may change their day.
I love that. I always encourage people to go out and be somebody's day maker, go make somebody's day.
Yeah.
Andy talks a lot about, learning how to identify and explore with what's on the other side of fear. A lot of really, really good tools in there. I got 2 questions on my mind to kind of wrap up here. So one, what I find interesting about your whole story is, how just unbelievably blessed and successful you have become, and he just brought something to light that, he was actually, a pastor, a minister while he was depressed, and nobody would have known that. So that's another thing to uncover is there's some people that you look at and perceive that they just like wake up and cartoons fly on their fingers and Julie Andrews sings through the room. That's not always the case.
Right.
But when it comes to all of this success that you have, you know, the money, the friends, all of these blessings, which sometimes we lose sight of when we're in that deep, dark space. Do you feel that you deserve all those things?
Man, not at all. It is funny, ironic, I guess. In the book, I can't remember, all the chapters are running together, but there is one of the chapters where I talk about that I was always saying, God, why me? Right? When I was going through the stuff with Peyton, when Tiffany lost her dad, when Tiffany lost her mom. By the age of 25, she lost her dad, mom, and sister. And so she has no more blood family, direct, close family. She has cousins and uncles, but her direct family is all passed. And so there was a time when this height of this depression, I was saying, God, why me? And then the other day, as I pulled in our driveway, I was just sitting there saying, God, why me? It's the same question, just totally different spectrums. And no, I don't feel that I deserve it. I will say we worked very hard. So if you want the success, don't give up and don't quit, and keep grinding. That is the thing, because there was several seasons where I didn't work hard. Where working hard, I guess it's different. Let me say, working hard just meant making it through the day, and that's fair for everyone. No matter what you're facing, you may be facing something where just making it through the day is enough of a win for you that day. But afterwards, it's time to strap up the boots and go to work and see what can happen afterwards, because anything is possible.
You know, it's interesting, that idea of even in that polished, successful state, still finding yourself saying, why me? Which shows that you could always be in that state. And then we look at this idea of strapping our boots on and going to work, and sometimes needing to find the inspiration and motivation to do that. What I'm thinking about is, you know, a lot of the things that you spoke about. It's like when you ask that question, why me? That's sometimes you forgetting that it's not about you, right? And the reason why you put the smile on and you're depressed, or put the boots on when you don't feel like it, or accept the abundance that you've been giving, is it has very, very little to do with you. So then you start to wonder, like, okay, so maybe my existence is actually to serve others. And then in that space, you know, then you start to say, it's all good, however I feel, whatever I think, and you know, that I'm still going to go serve others. That's awesome. So here's one of my all-time favorite questions to ask guests. And this is the last question I'm going to ask you, and it's going to throw you for a loop.
Oh Lord. I thought if there's anyone who's ever made me more nervous, it's Dragon. I love you.
Oh, come on. It's simple, but what is Andy Howard afraid of most?
Oh man, Andy Howard is afraid of most about what others think about him. I do dive into that as well. Insecurities, and we all have them. Maybe some are better at fighting, putting the boots on and moving on faster than others. But yeah, the thing that held me back for so long is, what are others going to think? You're not a writer. You've never wrote a book before. Will anybody even read the book? And JM kept coming in my head. It's not about you. And that is so good. It seems too good to be true that one little sentence can really change things. But when you get a hold of that what happens if I don't write the book, right? I've already received crazy text messages of people saying, thank you. I was laying on the floor crying, reading chapter 1, and I've been in this funk for 3 or 4 years, and I'm hoping this book is what turns it around for me. And that's a lot of pressure. I wouldn't put any hope in just a book, but if it changes just your mindset enough to get up and go on, that's pretty awesome. So that makes it worth it. But yeah, my biggest fear is what people think about me.
Yeah. And once again, you know, I was referencing what it's like when you see someone that's spending so much time making others happy. What we come to learn through self-development, personal growth is that, you're probably looking at someone that doesn't think a lot of themselves. So they spend all their time helping others. And that's probably why you and I are such good friends, because we're the same, man. And it takes a certain kind of person to be able to admit something like that. And that's where the healing process, anytime you look at a healing process, one of my favorites is Eckhart Tolle. He says the first step to end suffering is the acknowledgement that you are. And then the second step would be the decision that you don't want to anymore. And then you go into massive action no matter what. So Andy, how do people engage? I know you have a website. I believe it's andyhoward.com. We'll put all the links and stuff there. Where's the book available, and how does somebody get it?
Yes, sir. Easiest way is andyhoward.com. It has all the links on it from there, but you can get it also from Amazon, Audible. If you're a Kindle person, we have it on Kindle. And so, and there's a podcast as well, wherever you podcast is When Words Don't Come Easy podcast. And since I have you here, Dragon, you're going to have to come on mine, man. I would be honored if you would come return the favor.
You're going to make me come on your show and cry?
I would love it, man. I would be honored if you would.
It'd be my pleasure. My pleasure. So we'll put all those links in our notes, but Andy, I have so much respect for you, man. It's funny to just acknowledge right now that we're like doing this podcast, and I have this podcast show, and you just launched your book and all that stuff, man. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for, being so strong to be so weak and still do all this work. I have nothing but respect and love for you and your family and this beautiful life that you've created. So I know sometimes you don't understand it, but I think that you are well deserved, not only of what this, reality brings you, but everything good that comes your way. And I know you'll turn the bad things into something good for yourself and others. So thanks so much for being on this show. It's been a good one, man. So make sure you get out there and get your hands on this book and learn everything that you can about Andy Howard, because him and his wife and his team are real special. And thank you so much. Have an amazing day.